Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Mike McDowd. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a trivia question. Today's trivia theme is miscellaneous trivia, and a few things I think maybe we'll talk about, even though we will be introducing our guest in the next segment. Bill Belichick, I heard he might be ready to leave UNC already. I don't know.
No, I haven't heard that. Where'd you hear this?
Well, I probably read it on the internet somewhere. I don't know. No, I think they were talking on some sports show. And then the Giants I think they already signed Verlander, a 1-year, $15 million contract. I always wonder why the Giants always catch pitchers towards the end of their career. And you're too young for this, but I remember when they signed Sam McDowell in the early 1970s, and he was already toward the end of his career. And then Sam Darnold. Now, we're recording the show on Tuesday, and Monday, the Vikings got kind of thrashed. Just like the Lions thrashed them, I wonder, apparently he's going to sign. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, I'll leave it to the big show, but Sam McDowell, they used to say, oh, is that Sam McDowell, your old man? No, I'm a McDowell, not McDowell. That's number one. Number two, here's the deal. Sam Darnold, I don't want to tell you what happened to him, but the Rams defense absolutely annihilated him. And I don't want to, I'm going to save that teaser because what they did to him last night is an embarrassment.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be able to take the pressure. Only one time did he step up through the pocket to be able to complete a pass, which was a very difficult pass to make. But anyway, and when we come back, Mike, you've got a special guest for us. Tell the audience his name, and then we'll come back. We'll cut off the break and come right back. Who's going to be our guest?
Guest? We don't need no stinking guests. Nah, he's. I had to say it.
You took too long. We have to go to break now. Stay with us,
His name's Kent Justice. He's a big deal.
Okay. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back.
It's like, what did you just do?
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with Mike McDowd. And Mike, who is our not just our special guest, our extra special guest.
Oh, no. He's a big deal. Big deal.
He's a big deal.
And I'm very, I could be a jokester, but I have to be a little bit sincere. His name is Kent Justice. What a great name. The guy should be playing hoops or basketball, but Kent Justice, Kent, I love your name, man. Is
Me
a
too.
very distinct.
Of the Braves.
No relation, yeah.
Yankees. Okay.
No relation.
I do have an uncle, David Justice. Not the same one. Different David Justice, but yeah.
You may recognize the name Kent Justice. He hails from the beautiful Bay Area, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But he is a distinguished and clever, crafted news anchor in the city of Jacksonville, Florida. But, besides news, he kind of does it all. He's been a longtime sportscaster. We want to talk sports and we'll talk about his he's not a one-trick pony at all. He anchors the 6, 10, 11 p.m. newscast. And on top of the fact, he handles politics, business. I mean, this guy does it all. And Kent, you were away for a while, but Edward asked, so tell me about Kent. I'm all, Kent's a big deal. He's a big deal. But Kent, hey, man, not only are you a big deal, you're a super good guy. I've had the pleasure of knowing you the last few years. And listen, I'm going to say this right now. There's people in broadcasting who are jackasses. This is one of the good guys. Apparently, and I admire him as a person. His work ethic is second to none. He's got 2 careers besides being a news anchor. Kent, welcome to the show. Yeah. Thanks for coming on Sports Econ 101, heard coast to coast, border to border, and around the globe. Welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Mike, when you first gave me the idea, hey, do you want to be part of this? I'm like, yes, because we get to talk about so many different things. And certainly on the sports side, the reason I got into journalism at all was recognizing as that 14-year-old tallest kid on the basketball team in high school and realizing my position was left bench. Okay, I'm not going to be a professional athlete. How do I stay involved in something that I love? And that led to the journalism part. That led to writing, not just the school newspaper, but there in the San Francisco area, used to be 3 papers that were all connected to the Oakland Tribune, the Hayward Daily Review, the Fremont Argus. And as a high schooler, I got a job. Basically, I made friends with one of the reporters who was covering our high school games. And he said, hey, basketball games are Wednesdays, Fridays, Tuesdays, Thursdays. You want to come in? We could use somebody to man the phones. And that first journalism job was literally taking like badminton scores over the phone, typing the little agate font, the tiny print into the newspaper for publication the next day. But it was a great intro to just telling stories. And that's what I've learned just about me over the span of this career, is that I love telling stories. And the transition that I took from being a sportscaster into news was, gosh, you know what? As much as I love sports, maybe I tell stories that make more of a difference than touchdowns, tackles, and turnovers, runs, hits, errors. And that transition, it's a while ago now, we can get into that, but that transition also allowed me to go back into being just a complete sports fan. And certainly for a guy who grew up, I was born in San Leandro, right next to Oakland, so I grew up loving the big 3 for Oakland sports teams, the Warriors, the Raiders, the A's. And boy, is that a roller coaster, because at various times they are the worst in the league. See the Raiders right now, see the A's right now. And eventually they're just going to leave your town anyway. So it's a painful thing, even with some world championships or league titles thrown in there over the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, Ken has no problem filling airtime, so I love this. This is good stuff, Ken.
I thought you gave me the green light, man. I thought, okay, go.
Go, yeah, exactly.
Ken, something came over me. You said you're a Raiders, A's, and Warriors fan. And you were a kid. Don't you remember the magical memories of the A's winning world championships? Be the Raiders, Stabler, Bolitnikoff, all those cast of characters. This era can never be duplicated again. Tell us about those childhood memories. They're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah. So born there in San Leandro, late 60s. And so really as a kid, I'm growing up in the midst of 3 straight World Series championships by the A's. The 10 years of John Madden being the coach of the Raiders. The 75 championship for the Warriors when they beat Washington in the NBA Finals, and nobody cared, by the way.
Yeah,
I was there.
And then just not really having that experience in life to know how really cool that was, that all 3 of your big sports teams have won championships really close together. But really the thing that drew me in was 1980, Billy Martin, Ricky Henderson, and all of a sudden I'm like, I can't get enough of baseball. It was so fun to watch. I cannot get enough of baseball. And honestly, it was the announcer that was doing those 3 teams. It was all at the same time. Bill King. He was doing Raiders. He was doing Warriors, screaming at the officials every game. And so poetic in the things that he would draw in when he was calling a baseball game. I mean, suddenly he's talking about Russian literature. I'm like, I can learn something here while enjoying the fantastic sports that the Bay Area has to offer. Now, East Bay sports guy, but could I appreciate Joe Montana in the day, Jerry Rice and Steve Young? Absolutely. Could I get behind the Giants, especially the early 2000 run there? Every other year, they're winning the World Series again. But my heart really was on those Oakland teams. And even though they've all left the city of Oakland now, I still cheer for them. I can't get rid of it. I tried with the Raiders. Get me out of here. They're moving to LA. Oh, they're back in Oakland. Oh, they're moving to Las Vegas. I've tried. I just can't get rid of it.
It's interesting. even though I live in the North Bay, and yet now I'm older than you, so it was the 72, 73, 74 World Series are just fresh in my mind because I was just a young teenager during that time, and so and we were always big Oakland Raider fans. And the 49ers, John Brody, I mean, it's like, Gene Washington. Yeah, we could root for, I mean, he was awesome. But the San Francisco 49ers were just nothing during that time. And
Yeah.
even the Warriors were really, ever since Wilt Chamberlain left. Go ahead.
Edward, John Brody had a heck of a career. He's just on crappy teams. The guy should be in the Hall of Fame. Look at his stats. He's seriously, I love that guy. I grew up with him. And Kent mentioned the legendary Bill King, one of the greatest play-by-play guys in the history of the world. And, well, I don't remember the line. But what did he say? Something, hey, Madden, you can't believe it's real. It is real. Madden, get your big butt over here. It's one of the greatest lines in the history of man.
Talking about the watermelon smile on Madden's face. Yeah, so good.
Hey, you guys ready
Kent, do you remember when the Warriors won their championship?
Kent, do you remember the Warriors won their championship? I was pretty young. You're talking about 75, Rick Barry, and
yeah.
I don't remember many details, just the excitement of, our team won, that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I remember.
It wasn't the Oakland Coliseum because it was sold out because they didn't think the Warriors were going to be there. So the Ice Capades had it for like a week till they played the championship game. They won the championship at the Cow Palace.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah. Which takes us back to
Washington Bullets, 4 straight. And they weren't expected to even win. Tell you what, hey guys, we're going to go to our first commercial trivia question here. And again, as a reminder, Ken, don't answer quite yet. When we come back, we'll see if you know. All right, we've got just a few different trivia questions here. One of them is, which is the most visited country in the world? So I guess this is like a tourist question. Which is the most visited country in the world? And it's not Greenland yet. Okay, so that's my hint. All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be right back.
What is Kent's face? He's got it.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, and Mike, you always have to be looking at the cameras when we have the 5-second break. And our special guest, Kent Justice. All right, here we go. Here's our first trivia question. We just have too much fun here. Which is the most visited country in the world? Kent, what do you think?
Do I get to go first? This seems obvious. I see people who visit the United States everywhere. They come from all sorts of different countries. I'm saying the United States of America.
That was close. Okay, Mike, what do you think? Were you going to say the same thing?
Well, it's not Canada, so let's forget them. They're out.
Nobody visits Canada.
I know. Let's go with Kent's second. Let's go with Italy. I don't know. Everybody loves Italy.
No, in fact, it's funny because the in the rest of this trivia question, it says, by the way, the answer is not the USA, Spain, or Italy. It's France. I guess everyone goes to visit the Eiffel Tower. All right.
Have either of you visited France? Have you been to the Eiffel Tower?
I have. And you know what's really funny? I'm not a big guy on heights. And I accidentally went to the top thinking I was just going to the second level. Accidentally, yeah. I get on. Where am I? Have you ever been up there to the top?
Yeah.
That thing is pretty scary. I mean, you look down, you're all, that's like a mile down or something.
So you didn't ask for this, but more trivia. I turned 21 in Paris, France, 1989. And by the way, we're walking all over I've been studying abroad. I've been in Europe for 3 months. I'm walking all over the place on my birthday saying, pardon, où est le Hard Rock Cafe? Because there were t-shirts that said Hard Rock Cafe Paris. There was no Hard Rock Cafe in Paris. There were just t-shirts. So we spent all day looking for the Hard Rock and ended up eating at who knows whose hole-in-the-wall restaurant. I'm sure it was fantastic French cuisine.
All right, now I'm kind of curious now because as Mike says, you're kind of a jack of all trades. So in addition to doing sports or news, are you news anchor now or sports anchor?
Yeah, news anchor.
News anchor. Okay. You're also doing financial advising, and you're also a pastor.
Yeah.
And you roll that all up.
Sure.
What?
So the news media business, as you gentlemen probably understand, very subjective. And so I got in, my first broadcast TV job was in 1990. And in those 30, almost 35 years, three different times there's been, hey, Kent, your contract's up and you're a nice guy,
Yeah.
but we don't like the shape of your eyebrows anymore, or, whatever the explanation was. So after that happened, the most recent time was back in 2009. And after that happened, I landed on my feet and got the job as a news anchor here in Jacksonville, but also kind of decided, you know what, I'm not going to allow my family to be at the whims of a corporation or a boss or whoever to say, hey, we're not sticking around with you anymore, because that 14 months without income was awful. And so I was just looking for another way to kind of build into our family's financial health. And I had an opportunity because my TV job is later in the day. It's 2:30 in the afternoon until midnight. Found an opportunity to get licensed and start working with people and start helping people on financial planning. And then 4 years ago, it was really kind of out of the blue. Faith, very important to me and my family, and just kind of out of the blue, we ended up starting a church here in the Jacksonville area. And just we're kind of, at that point, we're just kind of like, you know what? If God is doing this, we don't want to miss it. We'll move that way. And then the next thing I know, my calendar is full every moment of every day.
I was gonna say, so how do you? Because I know, like, I've got a friend of mine who's a pastor, and it's a fairly small church, and he does like cybersecurity insurance. So that's like full-time job. So he balances those two. But he also doesn't do any news anchor. So how do you?
Right.
How much? I mean, how many attendees at your church? Do your How big is your congregation?
In these 4 years, it's grown to about 400 every Sunday.
I mean, that's pretty serious because, how do you balance that with, being able to spend time with people, right?
Right.
I mean, I know.
Good question.
Yeah, it's been a lifelong lesson for Kent Justice to go, oh, I think I bit off more than I could chew. How am I going to reconfigure things? Because you only have so many hours in a day, so much energy you can give. But certainly I have kind of worked hard on being able to manage those things. And part of it's expectations for myself. Part of it's just making sure that I keep my priorities in line.
And oh, by
right?
the way, you have a family too, so you got to get
Right.
that time in there. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
And that's exactly what I'm referencing. I got to make sure that my family comes first in all these situations. But yeah, Edward, I appreciate asking about that. It's a lot, but it's fulfilling because certainly from my perspective as a news anchor, as a journalist, providing value for our community, and especially here in Florida, because part of that is, hey, there's a hurricane coming. We need to make sure you're safe. Hey, I'm covering downtown and what's going on in city government. This affects your pocketbook. I mean, there are all these different ways that as a journalist, you can make an impact on people's lives. And I really believe doing that journalism job the right way, which is right down the middle, not to be on the right or the left or partisan or have an agenda. My agenda as a journalist is, hey, let me gather information. I'll even show you how I'm gathering it, and then allow you to use your brain and make some decisions on your own. But there's I think a big benefit for our community to do that. Certainly I see that we're helping people. The president of our company that does financial planning, I mean, it is all about the customer or client, and really we call them family members, because the only decision we're making is whatever's best for you and going to relieve some of that stress that we can have from money and knowing what the future holds and trying to plan those things out. And then on the pastoring side, that's where you're just pouring your life into somebody else to try and make a difference. So that makes it worth it for being exhausted at the end of a day, at the end of a week, at the end of a month, at the end of a year. You're like, okay, that's worth it because you're making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, good, Mike.
Yeah, one thing I gotta say, and this is where you say hey, a little Matthew 19:26. All things are possible with God. And, the reason I mention this is, and your story is really significant. You're a hardworking guy, but perhaps the most interesting element for me is the fact that you are a pastor. We don't talk about faith on shows like this because, oh no, that's taboo. But we're going to, and it's great. You're a news anchor. You're a husband, a father, and in the news business, often we become a little jaded. As a pastor, you have to have a heart for your flock, for your for people.
Yeah.
How do you bring that heart after all the garbage that you see in this world to people? Because people are broken, and man, they come to you for you're the guy who guides them with comfort and kindness and care.
Yeah. Certainly not the guy with all the answers, but I think there's a lot of power in transparency. And I think at the end of the day, what you or I need from somebody is to be seen and to be connected with. And so there are those same kinds of ups and downs as a pastor as there are covering the news. As a journalist, I've seen two different people die right in front of me covering an event. One was a rodeo event, one was a basketball game where a player died right there on the court. And you go, ooh, that changes you. But at the same time, as a pastor, just a couple of months ago, somebody that we had been counseling and coaching and trying to cheer on took his own life. And you deal with those things and you go, wow, what people need is other people sincerely, transparently, to be there next to them, to walk through those tough things in life. And man, it is so fun celebrating the good stuff with people. But you and I really remember when I was at my low point, who was it who was really there for me? Who was it who was, and again, not to have all the answers. I certainly didn't have very good answers when this friend took his life a couple months ago. But to be able to say to his family, I don't know what to say, but I'm here with you and we'll walk through this with you. That's huge, right?
Well, the crazy thing. Okay, so you're in Florida and I'm in California, and the new president that's going to be coming into office, generally speaking, in Florida, they're probably celebrating, and here in California, the psychiatrists are offering lots of drugs for people. So it's a little crazy on that. And by the way, I want to make one quick thing before we go to break here. So you mentioned about the financial planning, and I appreciate the fact that you just came right out and just said, you do what's best for your clients. So many years ago when I had my Series 7, the whole ethics thing was you always do what's best for your clients, right? And I hear these ads on TV or on the radio about, and we're a fiduciary, and that means we have to do what's in our client's best interest. And I'm thinking, are you telling me if you weren't a fiduciary, you wouldn't put your clients first? But that's the whole idea. Hello. Okay. You guys ready for our second commercial break? All right. Who is the only not quarter, but cornerback to win the Super Bowl MVP? That's an interesting one. All right. Who is the only cornerback to win the Super Bowl MVP? All right. Don't say anything yet. When we come back, we'll see if you know the answer to that. Stay with us, audience. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Do not touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-host, Mike McDowd, and our special guest, Kent Justice. Second trivia question, who is the only cornerback to win the Super Bowl MVP? Anyone?
I could take a guess. And the name escapes me, but I'm thinking this was actually a defensive player for the Dallas Cowboys when they lost the Super Bowl. Last name Scott?
No, you're thinking of Chuck Howley?
Maybe.
Or because Jake Scott played for the Dolphins. Chuck Howley but he wasn't a cornerback. He was I think he was a safety. But that would have been a good guess. That's what I would have guessed. No, it was Larry Brown.
Raider fan would have said it should have been In Super Bowl 18, Mike Haynes and Lester Hayes winning the MVP, they were a heck of a lot more important than a long run by Marcus Allen. Okay, back to you.
Good point, Mr. Stickum, Lester Hayes. Yes.
Right, exactly.
I would have said Lester Hayes, but that's true.
Yeah. No, Larry Brown of the Cowboys.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Larry Brown.
He had
And
like
then he had a miserable career after that.
What's that?
He was terrible after that. After winning that award, I think he went in free agency, and he was just Hey, good for him. Nice trophy to have.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sometimes the one and done. Sometimes these guys too, they get such a big contract. I don't know if his is the case, but sometimes they get such a big contract. It just kind of takes the edge off. It's like, oh yeah, I just made $100 million. It's like, okay, well, I love football, I'll play, but I don't really want to get hurt. Because it doesn't matter.
Business decisions, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Business decisions.
Yeah, that's why everybody should start off at like $100,000 a year, and then you get all these big bonuses if you make a tackle or you do this or that.
Team owners are going to buy into this one really quick. Yes, every player can only make 100,000.
Well, yeah, because what happens, if you get hurt, then I mean that part's kind of tough because I think the average is like 3.5 years in the NFL. Unless you're George Blanda, then that breaks all the records there. Go ahead, Mike. You were going to ask a question of our friend Kent.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question if you like the NFL. First of all, before the question, just a quick reminder: Rams Vikings last night, and Kent can comment on this. He saw the game. Boy, what the Rams did to the Vikings, really, really tough stuff. Sam Darnold was, excuse me, pardon me, what? What did you say? What? He was sacked 11 times. 11 times. Excuse me. 1-1.
I think it was 9 times.
1-1. 1-1. 11.
11. Wow. For some reason I thought
Who
9,
does that?
Yeah.
I mean,
so is that all on his offensive line? Is his line that bad, or is that on him?
But I think it's
that's
both.
a great question.
He doesn't know how to move. He couldn't move quickly enough. But also on the Lions the week before, he was pretty bad too. But
actually,
he only lost 4 games, 2 against the Rams and 2 against the Lions. Yeah.
Yeah, his 2 worst games were his last 2 games of the season. They feel like they're going to move on from Sam Darnold now, despite him having a very good year. But his last 2 games were his worst, like 51.3% passing completion percentage, horrible. Just bad. And speaking of bad, this is a great transition. Perfect segue. Pardon me. But Ken Justice and myself, we're in Jacksonville. And there's a football team here, professional football team. And we're going to get straight to it.
Semi-professional.
How does the guy who's in charge of the team, I'm not talking about the owner, I'm talking about Mr. 9 Lives himself, Trent Baalke, how does this man have his job? Go ahead, Ken.
Maybe he's dating the owner's daughter.
Really?
I don't think that's worked for some people as sports executives, of course, but no, that's the big question. So Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning coach with the Eagles, had some success early on that first season. Halfway through the second season with the Jaguars, looked like they're all going in the right direction. And then this year was just a disaster. A lot of the fans at the end of the season, the last home game, they didn't pay to send up the plane with the banner that said, get rid of Doug Peterson. It was fire Trent Baalke, fire Trent Baalke. And of course, Baalke stays and the coach goes. It's really something because, a lot of ways, this is similar to what happened with the 49ers when Baalke was there. You have maybe some early success, but there's not continuing success in player development or drafting the right guys or re-signing players you want to keep or in free agency. So I think the Jaguars head coaching job is something that is going to be sought after by some of the top head coach candidates who are out there because of Trevor Lawrence. But in general, I think a lot of people are going to be going, what am I going to get if I'm going into this organization that really hasn't had much success for a long time? And the Trent Baalke is still the general manager.
And furthermore, Ken and Edward, I was at the one of the local Cracker Barrel restaurants, one of the all-time great restaurants, and it was great when the gal checks me out. We started talking about the Jaguars. Oh yeah, I'm a Jags fan, and she's a nice lady. She's like, you know what? That Trevor Lawrence is so overrated. You can just tell. I watch him in warms. He can't throw the long ball, and I'm going, she may be just spot on. Is Trevor Lawrence really the guy? Because Doug Peterson, I don't think was a problem. I think this team is just not good from many positions on this club. Is that a fair analysis?
Maybe they can get Mark Brunell back.
Well, certainly if Ben Johnson were to take the job, maybe he'd bring the quarterbacks coach from the Detroit Lions along with him, Mark Brunell.
Oh, well, that's true. Mark Brunell.
But
Put a uniform back on him, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's something that a lot of people, especially the diehard fans, they've started wondering, gosh, where is the problem? Does it start at the top? Does it start at the owner? Shad Khan is the owner of the Jaguars, and he's owned the team more than a decade now. The economics of sports is what you guys talk about. He's made investments. He's got a public-private partnership to rebuild the stadium over the next 3 years. 2028, they'll be playing in essentially a brand new stadium. But so many people are like, the problems have to start somewhere. Does it start at the top? And of course, the fans, as I was just mentioning, certainly think it starts at the general manager's office and works down.
I heard Joe Namath is available, and I know he does those Medicare commercials now. He's about 80, but
sure does. Yeah, maybe Sam Elliott had come along as his, offensive coordinator, because he's doing those commercials right after Joe.
And Tom Selleck, is
right.
also
Tom Selleck. Yeah,
are we aging ourselves a little bit here? Yeah,
he could be the defensive coordinator.
That's true.
Tom Selleck. Do you know Tom Selleck at one point lived in Ponte Vedra?
No, I didn't know that. What, neighbors?
Yeah, he did.
Were you neighbors?
Actually, he bought a house for his mom down in Sawgrass, and back in the day, people would see Tom driving around, and a real nice guy. But yeah, he bought his mom a house here, so he was here quite a bit.
Did they call it is it Bonaventure?
Ponte Vedra, Florida.
Oh.
Florida. Bonaventure, sure.
Boy, my ears. I gotta stick the towel in and go.
Yeah.
TPC Sawgrass, the famous golf tournament. But
yeah, I was just gonna say that with all the fires going on in LA and LA moving to Arizona for didn't affect them at all. They still had home field advantage, so to speak.
Yeah, Rams looked every bit the 13-win team or 14-win team, and the Vikings looked like the guys who just barely squeaked into the playoffs. So
I don't think the Rams are going to go farther though. They look good against the Vikings, but I don't know. Stafford's just kind of not. I mean, sometimes you just kind of sense the guy is just not going to do it. Go ahead, Mike.
Gentlemen. I know this show will air before Monday. What's happening on Monday? The biggest game known to mankind. Kent is a big fan of
the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, right. And you didn't even go there. I mean, most Ohio State. Now you didn't have a son. I know your son was born there in Columbus.
Sure.
So I'm not going to offend you. He didn't go to Ohio State, but boy, Ohio State, they're very prideful. They're wow. I love them. They're good people.
Yeah.
So the Fighting Irish, Ohio State. I mean,
it's going to be a game.
Ken and I talked about it. I mean, listen, Ohio State is a team right now that's playing the super hot football. But Ken, I think I know you're going with. Of course, I know. But your thoughts on Notre Dame and Ohio State?
You love the Golden Domes over there, Mike. Is that what I'm hearing?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm rooting.
I've always been a Notre Dame fan.
I can't blame you there, and please don't blame me for being an Ohio State fan. So growing up San Francisco area, I mean, I was cheering in those days for Stanford because they had John Elway, or Cal because they were close by or whatever. The first big college football game I went to, early '90s, at the Rose Bowl, UCLA hosting Nebraska. They're both in the top 10. And it was a boring game. The stadium was not filled. Half the stadium was in Cornhusker red. I was not impressed. The first year I was in Columbus, Ohio, 1999, just so happens first game of the season, a night game at the Shoe, UCLA at Ohio State. A friend asked me to come. We're in the nosebleed seats. We're in C deck. And nobody sat down the entire game. Neither of those teams are very good in 1999, by the way. Nobody sat down. Nobody dared wear UCLA colors. And that place was full, 100,000 plus. And I went, oh, okay. Wait, I missed it. That game at UCLA, that's not what this is. This Big Ten football thing was something. And the next year I got to attend a Michigan at Ohio State game. I'm like, okay, this is compelling, especially for sports fans. I brought a guy who was visiting from South Africa. Kent, I want to experience everything American sports. I take him to the Ohio State Michigan game. 30 minutes before the game, boos are raining down on the field. He's like, what happened? They're not even playing. I said, yeah, the Michigan band came in and we're booing the heck out of them. Anyway,
the last time I rooted for Stanford was when Jim Plunkett was in the Rose Bowl.
No kidding.
Back a ways, yeah.
That's going back. Is that 1972, 70?
1970. 1970, yeah. Then he gets drafted by the Boston Patriots.
Yeah.
Hey, are you guys ready for our last trivia question? I tell you, it goes fast. All right, here we go.
Weren't they the Indians?
What's that?
Stanford Indians.
Yeah, they were the Stanford Indians. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in 5 seconds, I feel the same way about South Bend, Kent. Just let you know. I mean, nothing like it. I'm sorry, but if you haven't been there, we'll go.
Yeah, let's.
If you want to go to Indiana, you're there. Okay.
Edward, let's go.
Let's go. Okay. Actually, you know what? My daughter's now in Cincinnati, so that's not too far away, I guess. Okay. What is the top selling Blizzard flavor at Dairy Queen? Figured you got to throw a little food question in here. All right.
Good one.
What is the top selling Blizzard flavor at Dairy Queen? All right. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back with some closing comments. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike McDowd and our special guest, Kent Justice. Third trivia question, what is the top-selling Blizzard flavor at Dairy Queen? Go ahead. Anyone?
I don't know the answer, but I know I want one now. Now that you mentioned it, I need me a Blizzard right now.
Yeah. I got, I'm going to go with the, I love Blizzards. Brownie Blizzard?
Nope, Oreo.
Oreo.
Blizzard, yes.
Couldn't go wrong with either of those.
No, okay. So, Mike, we're going to ask Kent one last question about him.
Yeah, listen, we really want to thank our terrific guest, Kent Justice, a super guy, great guy, talented, does it all. Kent, you're a busy man from top to bottom. You do a couple shows yourself. Plug those shows. Tell people where we can find you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I cover politics for our TV station here in Jacksonville. And so, matter of fact, I'll be covering the inauguration this weekend and some of those events. And we do a live Sunday morning show that's politics. And usually we focus on Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia, but we also do on a national scale as well. That's called This Week in Jacksonville. And that's available. We've got a streaming service for News 4, the number 4 Jax. It's also available on our webpage, which is newsforjax.com. I also do a podcast that comes out once a week that is about economic growth and development. And really, one of our upcoming episodes is about that drive for sports in Jacksonville and the area and the impact that it makes. Because so many people, if you're not a sports fan, you're like, why is my city spending all this money on a sports team, especially the Jaguars, that doesn't win? We're getting into that. There's obviously a big economic impact for cities that invest in sports, but there's a price tag to it as well. So that's
Like-
called
like-
This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition, and you can find that anywhere you get podcasts.
Like Tampa Bay, you got to get for the Rays, you got to get more than 11,000 for 1,000
Right.
people. Okay, hey, you ready for our thoughts of the day? And it's interesting because you do financial advising. So I did some financial planning, and it looks like I can retire at 97 and live comfortably for about 11 minutes. Right.
Perfect.
And I hate it when Walmart doesn't have what I need, and I have to go home, change out of my pajamas, take a shower so I can go to Target. Don't you hate that? All right, the audience, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia or asking more trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Kent. Go Irish.